Dear Lord, we thank you very much for bringing each one here tonight who has come out of concern for the unborn, out of concern for the violation of your order of things that abortion represents, and abortion is the implementation of this anti-life, indeed anti-God agenda that seems to be so strong on so many fronts. We thank you for the faithful work of Operation Rescue. We thank you for the many projects that they've been involved in. We thank you for the success that you've blessed them with in terms of abortion clinics being closed and shut down, and the pro-life ethic becoming more and more prominent in our country today. Lord, we realize that 40 years of abortion on demand, essentially, in our country is a horrendous crime against you, a sin against you, a crime against humanity. And we pray that you would keep us faithful to you as we bring a pro-life witness, Lord, to our friends, our neighbors, and to our country as a whole. Bless our fellowship together, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
So as Dr. Myers mentioned, we're marking today the 40th memorial. I hate to call it an anniversary. An anniversary is something that you celebrate, you know, and this is not a day for celebration. It's a day for, you know, to take stock a little bit, to remember all of the babies that have died, and remember the women who have been, that regret their abortions, and families that have been broken asunder because of the tragedy of abortion. And so it's not really a day to celebrate, and so, but it is a time when we can take a look back and see where we've been, because that's the best way to figure out where we need to go in the future. In 1991, that was a pretty tumultuous year, especially here in Wichita. It was the year that the Summer of Mercy was here, the Summer of Mercy protests that spanned about 6 weeks, and there were well over 2,000 arrests for peaceful civil disobedience in this community. In 1991, there were 3 abortion clinics in this community. Today, there are none. They're currently open. Of course, everybody knows that there is an effort to reopen George Tiller's old abortion clinic, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But nationwide in 1991, there were 2,176 abortion clinics, surgical abortion clinics in this country. We have kept pretty close track of the abortion clinics and the abortionists in this country. And we have developed a website. Let's see if I can get it up here for you real quick. Most of you are going to love this. It's called abortiondocs.org. And we spent a long time researching the abortion clinics in the country, and there are 660 abortion clinics left in this country. This is Abortion Docs. And we did a lot of research. We called every abortion clinic in the country. We scoured the internet. We made phone calls. We did a lot of research to make sure that our list was up to date. And if you go to this website, abortiondocs.org, you can click on any state, and it will give you all the abortion clinics in that particular state. So we've seen over the past several years, over 2/3 of the abortion clinics close. And we are seeing abortion clinics close on the average of about 2 a month. And they're just not opening new ones. What's happening is Planned Parenthood is building these big, they call them mega abortion clinics. They're large buildings. They put their administrative offices in there, and they consolidate several clinics. So they'll close a few outlying clinics, but it's really not it's a consolidation. It's not really an ad when they build one of these big buildings. So, well, the pro-life movement is doing really good, actually. And we think that this website shows that in a pretty graphic way. One thing that is really important to know about Abortion Docs, and that is a good resource, is that we maintain documents on as many of the abortion clinics and abortionists as we can possibly manage. Right now there are 3,651 documents uploaded to this website. So you can look up an abortion clinic or look up a state, click on any abortion clinic or abortionist we have on Abortion Docs, and for most of them, there'll be some kind of document there. And these are source documents, like medical board documents, court records, and things like that, that really tell the truth about what's really going on inside these abortion clinics. It's where you can find all the stories of the abortion abuses. And these are not stories that are anecdotal in any way, shape, or form. These are 100% documented situations. So you might want to take a look at that at some point in time. That can be a pretty good resource. At Operation Rescue, even though the abortion clinics have been closed for about 3.5 years, we, of course, haven't stopped our work. In fact, we've expanded it nationwide, and we have several projects around the country, and one I've already told you about. We have complaints against abortionists. We seek out information on abortionists. We research them. When we find violations, we file the appropriate complaints. And we have about 100 open complaints around the country right now that are in progress and could result in anything from a fine to actually license revocation or closed clinics. We've seen all of that happen from our complaints in the past. We decided a long time ago, we talked about the Summer of Mercy and the peaceful arrest. We decided a while ago that, frankly, we were tired of going to jail. We didn't want to go to jail anymore. We didn't feel like we were the criminals. We believed that the abortionists were the ones that were breaking the law. And in all of our research that we've done on the abortion industry, we've never found a single abortion clinic that completely complies with the law on all counts. There just isn't one. We haven't found it yet. And we don't believe that that one exists, to be honest. And so what we've decided to do is change our tactics around and work to put the abortionists in jail. One example of that was a couple of years ago. We had a call from some people in Massachusetts. I heard that a woman had died during an abortion in Hyannis, Massachusetts. We put out a little story about it on our website, and pretty soon I get a call from the mother, and I thought, oh, she's going to be really mad at us for talking about her daughter's death. But actually, on the contrary, she was very happy to hear from us. Her name was Eileen Smith. Her daughter was Laura Hope Smith. And working with Eileen, she didn't know where to go. She didn't know what to do. But she just knew that her daughter should not have died, and that something really wrong happened at that clinic, and she wanted those responsible for the death of her daughter to be held accountable. So working with Eileen, we filed a complaint with the medical board, and from the medical board interviewed his clinic worker. Long story short, the clinic worker explained how this particular physician had not had the proper emergency equipment. He and one licensed person, a receptionist, were the only ones in the office at the time of this abortion. It was completely understaffed. He didn't have a crash cart. He didn't have oxygen. He didn't have anything that he could use to revive this woman when she suffered complications and went into respiratory failure and eventually cardiac arrest. And what this abortionist had done is had gone out, purchased all this equipment, backdated it in his files, and put it in his clinic to make it appear that he had all of that stuff at the time of Laura's death, which he didn't. Based on that testimony from his employee, the medical board forced him to surrender his license and he was charged with murder, actually, in Massachusetts. He was convicted, and he actually did, in our opinion, not enough time in jail, but he did actually go to jail. He had to surrender his license, close his 2 clinics, and that's the kind of thing that is a success story from the kind of work that we do. We seek out abortion abuses, and we expose them. One of the projects we're working on right now, we have some out of state that might be of some interest to you. We work with Life Dynamics, and we just have launched this project. It's called Safe and Legal, and this is an actual woman. Her name is Marla Cardamon, and she was 18 years old, and she was killed during an abortion. It was absolutely horrific. And in this brochure, and I'm not going to show you because we have children, it's her actual autopsy photos. And the reason that we're showing this is because, you know, the mantra of safe and legal has to be exposed for the lie that it is. Women are being injured and even killed by abortion on a regular basis. We've documented, I don't know how many 911 calls in the last couple of years. We're getting more and more of them in. They're taking place, in one city in St. Louis, they're taking place on the average of once every 2 weeks. Women are being injured to the point where they have to be transported on an emergency basis to a hospital emergency room. So it's not safe, and you can check this out on the internet. It's safeandlegal.com, and you can view the pictures, or I'll have this brochure here. You can take a look at it later if you want. Also in this, this woman was supposed to have an abortion. When they did the autopsy, her preborn baby was still in her womb. There's actually an autopsy photo of that baby in this brochure. Now it's graphic, it's gross, it's shocking, it's disturbing. So why would we publish it? We publish it because people need to know the truth, that this is what's happening to women. You know, we all know what happens to the babies, you know, during an abortion, but often we don't hear what happens to women in this. This shows that example. By the way, we did have 100% cooperation from her family in releasing these photos. The most recent abortion clinic to close in America is an abortion clinic in Muskegon. This is a little bit of a kind of a twisted tale, but long story short, the abortion clinic was a horrific mess. And we have some videos of it on our website. If you don't believe me, you should take a look. I mean, it's just absolutely appalling. It's like Kermit Gosnell type stuff, if you remember who he was, the abortionist in Massachusetts that was arrested for doing, actually, he would actually deliver late-term babies and then kill them after they were born, which is actually murder. He's been charged with 8 counts of murder. But he ran a really filthy, nasty abortion clinic in Philadelphia. Well, this guy, his name was Robert Alexander, and we had heard about him. We actually had an informant, a former employee, come to us and basically rat him out. And so we had filed complaints against him with the medical board and the health department, and we had heard that she had been interviewed by the investigators, and the next thing we heard was that the police were at the abortion clinic boarding it up and shutting it down. She took a picture of the closure order, right? And so we thought, oh, our complaints really worked. But actually what had happened was someone had broken a window at the abortion clinic, and the police were called. When the police were called, they walked into the abortion clinic, immediately called the fire marshal. Fire marshal took one look at what the conditions in that abortion clinic and completely shut it down. And so actually our complaints are now going to work to try to revoke that particular doctor's license. It's really kind of funny. On the videotapes we have on our website, you can hear him saying that when he left the clinic right before Christmas, the place was pristine. But when you look at the pictures that the police took the day after Christmas, it's absolutely appalling. In fact, the abortion machine still had the bloody remains of the last abortion that was done just before Christmas, laying there in the machine. The tube that was supposed to go into the woman, attached to the tube that went into the woman to do the abortion, was laying on a filthy floor. It was absolutely disgusting. And so you have to be really thankful that that abortion clinic closed, and that while maybe we didn't directly have a part in that, all of our complaints are in place so that we're actually anticipating the loss of his medical license soon. And this is the state of the abortion clinics that we see across the country. We see all kinds of horrific things, which I'm not going to take the time to describe to you, but like I said, we just really haven't found any abortion clinic that is in full compliance with the law. Last out-of-state project I want to explain to you is the state of Mississippi. Most people don't know that we actually are working in that particular state to close the last remaining abortion clinic in Mississippi. And it kind of came about in a way. Troy was in Washington, D.C. for Roe v. Wade last year, and one of the ladies from Mississippi was there, and she was like, we're kind of at the end of our rope. We just had a failed personhood amendment. We really don't know what to do next. Do you have any suggestions for us? And Troy suggested, well, why don't you institute this law, why don't you pass a law that says abortionists have to have hospital privileges within a 30-mile radius of their abortion clinics that they're working at. That only makes sense for women's safety. They send so many women to the hospital on an emergency basis. It only makes sense for the continuity of care that these people have hospital privileges. Well, this particular abortion clinic has what we call fly-by-night abortions. They fly in to Mississippi. They don't necessarily live there. And then they do the abortions. They fly out. If there's complications, the woman is just left to make her way to the emergency room. And we don't think that that's right. So that law was passed. It was signed into law. It's being litigated. The clinic was given extra time to comply with the law. It cannot comply. No hospital will grant hospital privileges to these out-of-state abortionists. And so they're about one court hearing away from closing. The brief that was filed in that case, we actually worked. Let's see if I have it here. This is the last state brief indicating the need for this law and why it's so important to have it. And a lot of the research about the history of abortion in Mississippi actually came from this office. We provided it to the state, and it's included in this brief. And they have a really sad history there too. Every abortion clinic and every abortionist that we had listed in the history of Mississippi had egregious problems. Some of them had their licenses revoked. One ended up in jail for killing his wife. He's still in jail, in fact, for murder. And others were closed for various reasons that presented a danger to the public. So we're hoping that that law will be enacted, be enforced, and that clinic will soon close. And I just thought you might like to know that our little office here in Wichita actually played a major role in that piece of legislation. But here in Kansas, we still continue to work, mostly in a little bit lower key than normal. We've been working with former Attorney General Phil Klein. I've probably written more words on Phil Klein's cases, his ethics case, and his efforts to hold abortion, enforce the abortion laws in Kansas than probably anybody else. We've written tons and tons on that. We helped expose the fact that during his last hearing, there was some bias shown by this research attorney in the Supreme Court. She was tweeting really horrible stuff, calling Phil Klein, nasty names, and, indicating that tweets that indicated she had knowledge of what was going to happen to him, what the court was going to decide before the oral arguments were even heard. And so we thought that was really a pretty bad thing. We made a complaint. In fact, Deborah was one that called over to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court suspended this research attorney, and she was fired the next Monday. And now Phil has filed a brief, which I have here. It's 85 pages. It's fun reading. We don't have it on our website yet, but we'll get it up here pretty soon. And what they're doing is they're asking for a delay in the judgment on his ethics case, pending an in-camera inquiry into bias at the Supreme Court. Because if you guys have followed this case, there has been many indications of bias. There's been many false things reported about Phil Klein and his investigations and things like that. And so they believe that the corruption and the bias inside the Supreme Court is very deep, and in that case, he would not be getting a fair hearing. And everybody's entitled to a fair hearing under the law in this country, and so for him to be the object of bias in the Supreme Court, we just don't think that's right. So we're supporting him in his effort to get an investigation. Yeah, another thing that we've worked on, excuse me, I'm just getting over being sick, and actually I'm not contagious anymore. I'm pretty well over it. So I'm a little problems with my throat. We're working on it. We filed ethics complaints against the Attorney General, Derek Schmidt, and Johnson County District Attorney Steve Howe after they demolished the case that Phil Klein had filed against Planned Parenthood. 107 criminal charges, including 23 felony counts, were just decimated by these prosecutors. And the week that the case was finally dropped, the last charges were dropped, I was really bothered by the reasons that they used, and so we made an open records request to Judge Anderson. We thought, let's ask Judge Anderson. So we made an open records request to him. And we received documents back that indicated that a full set of records that they said had been destroyed and didn't exist were actually in his custody in Shawnee County. We filed ethics complaints against Schmidt and Howe. I was interviewed in December for 2.5 hours, something like that, up in Leawood at the investigator's office. And they assured me that they were going to interview Judge Anderson, and hopefully they'll get to the bottom of that. But we believe that those charges against Planned Parenthood will only encourage them to continue to violate the law. Because, you know, if nobody in Kansas will hold them accountable to the law, why should they follow it? You know, we know already that abortion clinics have a history of not following the law. So we believe that dropping those charges instead of taking them to court after all the history there is only going to embolden them to continue violating the law, and that places women's lives at risk. And so this is a very important thing. Another Kansas case that we worked on is a really interesting case. Up in Kansas City, there's an abortion clinic called Central Family Planning. It's also known as Aid for Women. In fact, it was the Aid for Women abortionists that used to come down to this office and do abortions when this was still an abortion clinic. And in that case, we had an anonymous person come to us and present us with documents that had been carelessly discarded by the clinic that indicated that they were violating HIPAA laws, that they were not reporting child sex abuse, that they had pre-printed forms, in fact, where there was a question on these forms that had to be filed with the state, whether or not there was suspected abuse, and in every case, those forms were pre-marked with a no. So any woman that came in, no matter what her situation, her form was going to say no abuse, no matter what her situation was. We think that that's wrong. We filed complaints. The Kansas Board of Healing Arts has investigated. The investigation is essentially over. The investigator's report has been handed over to peer reviewers. It has to go through 2 peer reviews, and then we will find out at the end of that whether or not the board has decided to take any kind of disciplinary action against this particular clinic. So that was a really interesting case for us. In fact, I have a little bit of a video to show you. You know, when they talk about abortions in Kansas, you have to understand that they're not the pristine, clean, safe clinics that some people would want to think, you know, like Kathleen Sebelius tried to say we had the best quality abortion clinics in the country. Well, if this is the best quality, God help us. And are we going to see it?
related to Central Family Medical, also known as Aid for Women, an abortion clinic in Kansas City, Kansas, that contained improperly discarded private medical information for 86 women, including 4 minors, who visited the clinic for abortions during the single month of April 2012. The documents were leaked to Operation Rescue by a confidential informant after other efforts to alert regulators failed. The contents of the documents include names of the abortion patients, patient ages, gestational ages of their pregnancies, patient phone numbers, photocopies of patient driver's licenses, the date and cost of the abortions, sonograms with information such as patient name, date, and age of the preborn baby, empty cash envelopes that indicate the names of the abortion patients, the date of the abortions, how much cash was placed inside the envelopes, and other medical information. Communications from the clinic administrator regarding a 2011 clinic licensing law that showed mocking contempt for safety regulations. Admission that the only suction mechanism they have to clear airways is a uterine cannula attached to the abortion suction machine that would likely injure the trachea. Admission that they would not intubate patients who need it out of fear of lawsuits. Admission that the surgical assistants have no licensing whatsoever. Other evidence gathered by the informant over the past year consisted of bloody refuse of abortions, syringes, and other medical waste. Laws regarding the disposal of biohazard waste were completely ignored. The evidence included several Kansas Department of Health and Environment supplemental termination of pregnancy forms. One form was pre-printed with all patient information left blank. One document contained the pre-printed information only on a blank page, and other forms were filled in with patient identification numbers and the dates of their abortions. Every form had a pre-printed no box marked next to each question number 15. Was report of physical, mental, or emotional abuse or neglect filed pursuant to KSA 38-2223? These records show that Central Family Medical has predetermined that no woman walking through their doors will have been the victim of abuse. That places women, especially minor girls, at risk of being handed back to their abusers, where they will suffer further harm. That alone is a betrayal of these vulnerable women and deserving of closure and criminal charges.
These videos were taken by sidewalk counselors to document the horrific conditions that these women were released in. Most of them were going to walk on their own. You can see that. This is like the clinic
How's that for ambulatory
administrator.
able to move on her own? There's another one. Can barely walk on her own. Here we go. Number 3 for the 17th.
These are all done on the. These are all from the same day, by the way.
This is the 4th woman who's been brought out of the Central Family Medicine Clinic, completely unable to walk on her own. If John, the security guard, is going to jump in there and help. Her boyfriend is shielding with his coat, which at least she can respect his chivalry after an abortion. But you look at to the extent that they have to go through in order to get this poor girl into the car. And there she's in the car, covered up with his jacket. The patient in the road today. They're covering their head, which is fine. That's not what we're trying to show. We're trying to show here today that they can hardly walk on their own. Two men are supporting this woman, being released by Dr. Yeoman. Two men. Had to help her get to the cross.
This poor girl, we had a lot more video of her. She was almost fell over at one point. She had taken the thing off her head. We didn't want to show her face. But we actually had more video of her. But she was in really bad shape.
There can be no doubt that abortionist Ron Yeomans and his administrator, Mark Peterson, are operating a dangerous abortion mill that poses a risk to the public. Women who walk into that abortion clinic are playing Russian roulette with their lives. These documents expose the hypocrisy of abortion clinics that resist record subpoenas and fight licensing laws. In fact, they show the need for such oversight. But to abortion clinics, privacy rights are more about keeping abortion abuses secret than protecting women, whose sensitive personal information is treated with less regard than junk mail.
Okay, we filed complaints. Complaints have been investigated. We're just waiting the results of that. Okay, so that's one of our projects that we should be hearing about again in the very near future. But what happened to the old Tiller abortionists that were here working in Wichita? And there were 4 people that he had working for. He had Ann Kristen Newhouse. She was the lady that provided the second referral for the late-term abortions. She has had her license revoked on our complaint just last year. They determined that she had made improper referrals for late-term abortions based on shoddy and basically what amounted to quackery in determining that the women suffered mental health problems. Leroy Court in Germantown, we filed a complaint against him when we got his license application in Maryland, found out that he had lied about his past and about who he was and the nature of his business, and we filed a complaint with the medical board. He was actually censured for that. They put a letter of warning or something like that in his file, so that's on his permanent record. We did investigation there in relationship to his dumping practices, and we discovered that he was also illegally dumping, and we filed also a complaint against him. I have a video about that. Then Shelley Sella was another one. Shelley Sella is a very interesting case. While she was here in Wichita, we had one of the clinic workers come to us and confess that she was in the room when a late-term baby was born alive. Shelley Sella, she said, picked up an instrument and stabbed the baby and twisted until the baby stopped moving. When we heard that, we contacted our attorneys. Our attorney said, we're sorry, but this is evidence of a possible murder. You have to report it to the authorities. We reported it to the authorities. The authorities picked her up. She completely recanted. She got cold feet, and she changed her story. And so that was really a little bit upsetting for us, because when she told us, we had no doubt that she was telling us the truth. She was really honestly bearing her soul. And so she moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. They basically set up a practice identical to what Tiller's was in Albuquerque. Her and Susan Robinson worked there. They were 2 of Tiller's abortionists. And Shelley, we found out that they've been sending a lot of women to the hospital. We got 911 records, about a dozen of them from the clinic where Sella and Robinson worked. We discovered that Shelley Sella had botched a 35-week abortion, sent a woman to the hospital with a ruptured uterus, and we filed a complaint with the medical board. The medical board investigated. They issued an intent to discipline her for this. She had a 3-day hearing in Albuquerque. I was actually there, but it was supposed to be an open hearing, but they barred us from the hearing, which, you know, we don't think that was right. It's supposed to be a public hearing, but they barred us from attending. And so anyway, we're expecting word on that within the next 60 days or so. But they did have a full-blown hearing, disciplinary hearing for her, and we expect that she will be disciplined. It could be anything up to from a fine to license revocation. We're hoping that her license will be revoked because we believe she's a dangerous woman. And then Susan Robinson is another one interesting. She works with Stella in New Mexico, and she has a complaint against her right now for an abortion. The young lady came to us, explained her situation. In fact, actually, her mom came to us. She was in the hospital at the time, suffering complications from an incomplete abortion that she had had 2 weeks prior. She had developed a life-threatening infection and was in the hospital. We talked to her later, and she had gone to this abortion clinic, wanted a particular procedure. They said, well, we can't do that, you're too far along. And she expressed that she thought, well, I'll just forget it, I'm just going to keep this baby. And they said, no, come into this room. This is what the girl told us. And they went into a room, and Susan Robinson told her, just take these medications, and all your concerns of not wanting this procedure will go away. And I don't think you can really drug somebody in order to gain their consent for an abortion. So she has a complaint pending against her at this time. Now, I suppose the situation here in Wichita that's of most interest to people is Julie Burkhart's intent to reopen Tiller's Clinic under the name Southwind Women's Center. And we've done a couple of things on that. We've watched it very, very carefully. And they had neglected to register their Trust Women Foundation here in the state of Kansas, and they were doing business under that name without being registered with the Secretary of State. So we registered it to us. So we are now Trust Women Foundation Incorporated. Thank you very much, because we do trust women. We trust women to do the right thing and take care of their babies and love their babies when they come into the world. So that was kind of a funny thing. They had to register under a slightly longer name. We kind of joked that, you know, their letterhead would have to be on landscape, you know, in order to hold the name now. It's kind of funny. But then also we found out, we did an open records request to see if they pulled any permits for the construction that they're doing down there. They said that they're going to comply with the new laws that haven't yet to go into effect to regulate the size of hallways so that gurneys can get down in the event of an emergency and things like that. And that would require them moving walls. And they have gotten no permits. They've already repaid the parking lot, and that required a permit. No permit was pulled. In fact, there have been no permits for any construction pulled at that office since 2009. Well, since 2009, that's as far back as we asked. And so we believe that the construction is going on there without a permit, that it needs to be shut down. We filed a complaint. We put our request into the new head of the Metropolitan Area Building Department. It's a new joint commission with the county and the city together that's all about code enforcement. We put in a complaint with the head of that. His name's Tom Stoltz. He used to be the deputy police chief here in Wichita. And so we have a complaint in there, and we'll see where that goes. But also, we have another project also in the works, a legal project that we're working with another agency. I can't really reveal too much about that because, you know, they like to do these investigations. We like to let them do it without too much publicity because we feel like we're going to get better results that way. So there is another thing that's going on behind the scenes that we believe will either delay or prevent the opening of this abortion clinic. So let's just pray for the success of these efforts. We know that there are other efforts ongoing as well to rezone the area. That might be a little difficult one And in fact, the people that are putting forward that plan have even admitted that that's gonna end up in court. Even if they're successful in rezoning, they expect to be sued for that if that happens. So what we decided to do is try to work a different angle, you know, not put all our eggs in one basket, so to speak. I'm going to show you a couple more little videos. This one is about Germantown reproductive health with Leroy Carhart, and this is just an example. This is from our dumpster investigation, okay? And you can see what kind of things are going on. Look, pick them up. If I found out that my baby that I had aborted, God forbid if I would ever do that, I never have, but, you know, I would be very upset to find remains of my child in a dumpster treated like trash. And I would also be upset about some of the other things we found, and I'm going to play that for you. It's really short. These are really, really short. I keep doing that. I keep pointing at the screen.
Services is a late-term abortion clinic located in Germantown, Maryland. The abortionist there is Leroy Carhart, who flies into Maryland from Nebraska to do the latest of late-term abortions that are illegal in the state of Nebraska. Between August 2011 and May 2012, pro-life activists conducted an undercover investigation into dumping practices at Germantown Reproductive Health Services. During that investigation, the contents of the trash were inspected and cataloged. Information found inside the trash clearly identified it as refuse from Germantown Reproductive Health Services and Leroy Carhart. Trash at Germantown Reproductive Health Services fell into three categories. First were documents containing private patient information, including photocopies of patient driver's licenses, information about birth control prescriptions, and detailed information about at least one patient's 15-week pregnancy for which she would have been charged $2,200 for an abortion. The second category included bloody refuse that was discovered in the trash that consisted of bloody sanitary napkins, paper towels, and blue pads, some of which contained blood clots and possible human fetal remains. The third category was drug vials that were found in the trash that were still partially full. This constituted a violation of drug handling protocols.
Yeah, Maryland's implementing abortion clinic regulations very similar to ours. Maryland is a very, very pro-abortion state. And for them to take these steps really shows that there's been a lot of problems there. Okay, this one is, oh, these are just results from some of our other dumpster investigations. We like dumpsters. we like dumpster diving. We don't actually do it ourselves, or personally, I don't. But we have volunteers. This is a 911 call from the 35-week abortion patient in Albuquerque that I was talking about.
It's a business. Southwestern Women's Auctions. Southwestern Women's Auctions. And what is your phone number over there? 505-242-7512. Okay, I heard 242-7512. Is that correct? Yes. All right, and what has happened over there? The doctor's concerned we have a uterine rupture during late-term abortion procedure. Okay. The patient with a previous C-section patient stable at the moment. Okay. But let me write down some questions and we'll get over there quick. Okay, are you with the patient right now? I am not. Okay. Do you have her chart? Approximately like 20, 40. She's in her 20s.
You know, that's pretty typical of 911 calls for her. They have no idea how old the lady is. Sometimes they don't even know what her condition is.
Okay. Let's see. And did she seem to be completely alert? Well, she's been medicated, but she's alert. Medicated alert, you know. Yeah. Okay. And is she breathing normally? Yes. Good. And she's not bleeding or vomiting any blood? No. All right. Okay. I am going to get my paramedics If you have somewhere else you want to just... No, that's the window. That's the entrance. I'll just keep an eye out for them. Okay, I'll take care of you right away.
This woman had had a previous C-section. She overprescribed uterine contracting drugs. Patient suffered a uterine rupture. If it wasn't for this 911 call, no one would ever have known about this incident, by the way. And we don't know how many women she would have continued to injure. Okay, now this, Troy does these little radio spots for Talk Radio Network, the little 1-minute radio commentaries. They're called Take a Minute for Life. And this is his latest one, okay?
Change his spots. Let's take a minute for life. I'm Troy Newman, president of Operation Rescue. The prophet Jeremiah asked us a very loaded question. Can a leopard really change his spots? Well, of course not. In the same way, many people just can't doing the same thing over and over again. Let's use the abortion cartel as an example. They just can't stop breaking the law. Miss Julie Burkhart wants to open up a new abortion clinic in Wichita. But just like her former boss, she's already violating the law and hasn't even opened yet. Operation Rescue has documented multiple building code violations stemming from illegal contract work on their building without obtaining a building permit. Abortion mills continue to resist all inspections and follow the law. It reminds me of another Bible verse. As a dog returns to his vomit, so a sinner to his ways. For OperationRescue.org, I'm Troy Newman.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but the picture of the parking lot being paved, yeah, they're all hovering around this nasty-looking apparatus that apparently throws the tar down on the ground. One of the guys there was former security guard John Rayburn. John Rayburn's the one that repaved that parking lot. Now, Julie's attorney, Robert I., who incidentally also represented Ann Kristen Newhouse and said she didn't violate any standard of care and that all of her care was completely the best possible care. So we know how much we can believe him, since the Board of Healing Arts ruled that she needed to, she was a danger to the public because of the way that she operated. So Robert I. said that only the most qualified contractors are working on that building, and if they need a permit, they will certainly pull one. Well, the parking lot's already been paved. There's no permit, and it wasn't done by an experienced paver. It was done by Tiller's former security guard. It looked like a couple of teenagers out there. Okay, so if they cannot follow a simple law that would require them to pull a permit to do building, then they cannot be trusted with the health and the lives of women. And so we feel like we have we made a pretty good case for that, we think. So that's where we're at here in Kansas right now. Wichita's abortion-free. It's one of the largest metropolitan areas. In fact, you won't find an abortion clinic for about a 2-hour, 2.5-hour drive in any direction. From Denver to Kansas City, from Lincoln to Oklahoma City, there are no abortion clinics. Okay, and we'd like to keep it that way because what we've found is when there are no abortion clinics in a community, the women find other ways to deal with their issues and to deal with the challenges that they face. And they don't engage in the knee-jerk reaction on a generally speaking and go get an abortion. They instead seek ways to have their baby and either release it for adoption or care for their child. We have a crisis pregnancy center next door, Better Choice. They've reported to us that since the closure of the last abortion clinic in Wichita, their requests for adoption skyrocketed. And we have security cameras all around here because we get threats and stuff, so we're pretty security conscious. And so we kind of watch our cameras throughout the day, see who's coming and going and whatnot. And we see a constant stream of young ladies going over here for help. at this crisis pregnancy center, and that's certainly not the only one. In Wichita, there are several others. In Wichita also that stand ready to give practical assistance to women who are pregnant. And so they have found that there's no need for an abortion. We don't believe there's ever a need for an abortion. Actually, not even in the case where the mother's life is endangered. We believe instead that the doctor should treat both the woman and the baby as patients, that the baby should be, if need be, delivered by cesarean section and given whatever care is appropriate for that baby at that particular gestational age. And if the baby dies at that juncture, at least you didn't kill the child. You attempted to save the baby and give the baby whatever medical care you could give. You know, we don't believe in letting a woman die just to let her die. We don't believe in that. We don't believe the answer is killing another person in order to save her life. But incidentally, speaking of those very rare situations, in the history of the state of Kansas, there has not been one reported instance of a woman receiving an abortion to save her life. Okay? There have been many that have been, we believe, fraudulently, and the Board of Healing Arts seems to back us up on that. Many babies aborted for mental health reasons that were not legitimate reasons, we found out after the fact. But the mental health reasons for abortions are not really life-threatening conditions, and women can seek counseling and they can get other kinds of help. There's no reason, whatever the woman's circumstance, to take the life of an innocent baby. And that's really why we're here tonight, is because after 40 years, there's been about 55 million innocent babies that have died from abortion since Roe v. Wade was decided, and countless millions of women who have been injured, that have been killed, like Marla Cardin here is one example. We had another example here in Wichita, Christine Gilbert. You might have heard of her a long time ago. Marla died because of Roe v. Wade. She was a healthy young lady when she walked into that abortion clinic and was brought out and taken to the coroner's office, lied on a coroner's table, and we believe that 40 years of this is enough, and it's time to stop. We don't want to be here for the 41st memorial of Roe v. Wade. We want to see it brought to an end, and there's indications that we're really, really close. We believe that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We believe that there is some public opinion increase in the pro-life side that would indicate Americans are tiring of abortion and really don't want it, especially amongst young people. Young people are more pro-life than they tend to be pro-choice. And so we're really making gains with young people, and I think that's because they're the first generation that could actually see themselves in an ultrasound picture. They saw themselves in their mother's womb, a picture of themselves, and they know that that was them. They weren't a blob of tissue. They were a real baby, and so I think that really has had a huge impact on the youth of our country, along with other efforts by pro-life organizations to educate the public. And we're seeing more legislation on a state level. Federally, we're not going to get anywhere for a while. Federally, and frankly, we've never made any significant inroads federally. The few laws that we have had, like the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, they have no teeth. We found that out. We had a case down in Florida. No kidding. I cannot make this stuff up. This lady went in. She had a baby. The doctor didn't come. They kept trying to get him to come to finish her abortion, and he was off at the ATM and running his errands or whatever. Did not come. That woman delivered her baby. The baby was born alive. The lady, who happened to be like the receptionist or whatever, grabs a pair of scissors off her desk, cuts the baby's umbilical cord, put the baby in a bag, threw the baby up on the roof of the abortion clinic to hide the body from any authorities that might come looking. And that baby was later discovered. That lady was charged with manslaughter, but she was never prosecuted because they delayed the case so long. All of the witnesses had moved on or weren't interested in testifying anymore. We call it defense by delay. Doesn't mean that she was innocent. It just meant that they delayed the prosecution